All right, so we are going to start talking about what is question of the day, and we're going to start learning about how you implement it in your classroom. So, question of the day is a very simple concept. It is based on three things. First, you're going to be identifying the theme of what it is that you're going to be discussing that day. Second, you're going to identify a question that connects to that theme. And then finally, you're going to create instructional experiences that align and support students' understandings of the question. Now, as I've laid it out here, when I talk about identify a question that connects to the theme, right, it leads us to our next question, which is, so who asks the question, right? Who puts forth the question that we're going to explore for the day? And ideally, what you want to do is move towards the students putting that question out there. But at first, you as the teacher may want to pose the question just to serve as a model for students in terms of thinking about what do quality questions look like, how do you participate in a discussion related to the question. So you have to decide how much scaffolding your students need. I think it's perfectly fine to start by setting the tone with you identifying the question and showing them how it's going to play out. All right, so I want to give you a short example. This is based on something I did with high school students. This example would also work with middle school students because it's focused on texting, right? And so the question that I created the question for this, is texting killing language? And what I wanted was for students to think about writing, right? Think about what counts as quality writing. What about context? Does what counts as quality writing change across contexts? And if so, why? And if not, why not, right? Because there are arguments out there that people make that texting is actually diminishing, particularly adolescents' ability to write and to learn how to write well. And so this is something that they're going to have opinions about. So I wanted them to take it up and think about, how does texting influence, academic writing? Does academic writing influence texting? Should they influence each other? Things like that. So we started with this question, is texting killing language? And then I asked students, to sit by themselves for a minute or two and just jot down their thoughts on a piece of paper. And you really, of course, want everybody to write them down on a piece of paper, because then when we get to the next part where they're going to share in a small group, everybody brings something to the table. You can't say, I can't participate, because everybody's got something, right? So they write their thoughts down, they go into a small group, which could be a partner, it could be 3 to 5 people, no more than 5 people. And this is going to last maybe 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, sort of gauge how they're doing there and cut it off when you think you need to. So then we're going to discuss it as a whole class, all right? Next up, we watched the TED Talk, Is Texting Killing Language, from John McWhorter, and that is also provided for you, his video is provided for you on Blendspace in the next slot over from this one. So you can watch that video. It's totally appropriate for middle and high school students to watch. So they watch the video, and then I asked them to go back to their small group. And again, now that you've watched the video, right, what do you think? Is texting killing language? How does what your peers said and how does what John McWhorter said, how does that shape and influence, what you thought before you saw the video? What do you think now? And then we came back and discussed it as a whole class. So that is just one way to get it started with you as the teacher, right, laying it out. It's a very simple format there. But I think this thing right here where I introduced the video, this is critical because you want them to be able to have some content. In this case, the video was the content that will then link back to these discussions and give them something to really dig into and think deeper about, so that when we come down here and we're revisiting this, they've got some kind of outside content that they're connecting their ideas to. And then, you can see all throughout here, right, we're getting at some of the things I talked about earlier, where students are having the opportunities to not only offer up their own interpretations and questions that they have about this, is texting killing language, but they're also able to hear a variety of perspectives, including somebody who's going to be an expert, right, on this. All right, so that's just to get you started. We got some more things coming up. We're going to be talking about how do you get students to ask the questions, right? For on the example I gave you here, right? As a teacher, I set the question of the day, but we want students to be setting it. So we're going to look at different ways to get students to set it. How do you then frame instruction to support their questions, keeping in mind that you don't always know their questions in advance. You don't necessarily know what question of the day is going to be until your students show up with their question. So we'll talk about how do you create instruction that's going to be supportive of that. And then this last point here, how do you learn to be comfortable with the unknown? Because you're asking students to come to class with questions, and you're not going to know what those are with a significant amount of lead time at least. So how do you be okay with that? And then how do you create instruction that is going to be supportive even though you don't know what questions they're going to be asking? We're going to get into all of that. It's going to be just fine, I promise.